Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Let's Skill Up podcast, the podcast for corporate trainers and the leaders who train and develop them or lead them, where we have jam sessions about training best practices and lessons learned. We have lots of fun nerding out about learning and development and training overall, and of course, telling our battle/war stories sometimes. I am Karie here with my partner in crime, Charles, and in every podcast, we aim to unpack what it actually takes to move from delivering training to driving real results. Hi,
Mhm.
Charles. How are you doing today?
Good, Carrie. Great to be with you again. This is going to be a fun one.
It'll be definitely fun and definitely timing. AI is definitely top of mind for, I think, myself, many of us in training and L&D. And the topic of the day is this concept. AI won't replace trainers, but it will expose capability gaps fast. So diving in, what do you think about just overall this topic? Do you think AI will expose our capability gaps?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and it's interesting. In our world as corporate trainers and trainers of trainers, we have a choice. We can either look at AI and say, I don't understand it, so I'm just going to go with the flow, or I don't understand it, so I'm going to learn as much as I can about it. And I would, as a corporate trainer, I would opt for I'm going to learn as much about it and its capabilities. Because to your point, uh, as a trainer, AI really can't replace us in many aspects. We're transferring content, we're building skills and capabilities. AI can create the content, but we have to deliver it.
I think back to my own experience and my own journey with AI. A few years ago, I had that thought, what if, and I'm in the L&D and training space, so what if AI one day takes over my job, right? What is that possible? What does that mean? What does that look like? And I kept on hearing in the podcast that I was listening to, AI won't take over your job, but
Mm.
the person who's able to leverage AI will. And so
Yes.
that got me thinking. I same thing. I needed to upskill myself, understand AI, understand LLMs, understand how to leverage Chat GPT, Copilot, etc., to make sure that I was being as effective and efficient as possible in my various roles when it comes to learning and development. So I would 100% agree with you there.
Yeah, if many of you have probably tested it out, you've gone to Chat GPT or whatever, and it said just create an exercise for me that coincides with this content. And you'll see very quickly that it will do that. And we can't make the false assumption that that exercise is going to be perfect for our group. This is where you as a trainer really have to insert your knowledge and your curiosity to ask the question in your mind as you're reading through it, will this work? Is this going to be the right thing for the audience? And that's part of our role is to understand the audience and the material and create the match.
Yeah, I think the power really is in delegating certain tasks or assigning certain tasks to an AI chatbot, let's say, or LLM, and leveraging our human context to do exactly that, build that context, understand the reality of the participants, where are they coming from, what are they needing, what business results are we not achieving and that we are aiming to achieve through this training or learning initiative. That's really where we as humans can truly add value, and we bring that into the design itself and the delivery right into the training room.
Yeah, we are the deliverers, so we can't forget that role. AI plays a great part as an adjunct to that, and I think it'll play an even stronger role after the learning to sustain learning, because now there will be capabilities where participants in your workshops will have the opportunity to practice with AI tools
Mhm.
and query, and maybe you would be involved in the design of some of those sustainment tools using AI because I think it's a perfect application for what's evolving in the AI space.
Yeah, I'm seeing AI coaches, AI simulations, right? They're definitely great to leverage from a sustainment standpoint, from a scaling standpoint too. The key is for us to train those AI simulations and coaches to align with the overall outcomes that we're trying to drive. I have seen some AI elements from a delivery standpoint too, from micro trainings, e-learnings. I'm seeing AI starting to be pulled in from a delivery standpoint there. What do you think we need to be thinking about as facilitators, as trainers, to make sure that we are continuing to add value in this space?
Yeah, I think the L&D leaders, and it was interesting because I just came back from the Midwest where I met with a group of L&D leaders who had been to a conference in Orlando last week on learning and development, and the focus was 90% AI.
Hmm.
And, one of the things that they talked about was the most effective training still is in classroom, face to face, person to person. The linear training that AI can do, where you have a face, an AI generated face delivering content, it's a one-way medium, and the training is not going to transfer very easily. And the L&D people in that conference acknowledge that. So training people, professional training people, are still the center point of successful transfer of training.
If we look to unpack that, we ask the question, why is that? My mind goes to adult learning theory. It goes to the 70-20-10 rule, right? Where 10% of what adults learn tends to be in a formal learning setting, like a training. 20% tends to be from social interactions, and 70% tends to be on the job. And
Right.
you're completely right. When we're thinking about AI, even AI delivering and e-learning, they're in the video. We're seeing an AI avatar delivering a session. It's one-to-one. It
Yeah.
doesn't include the 20, it doesn't include the 70. And that's where we as trainers, when we're in that live environment with a group of people, we can really lean in. And that's what we need to do, right? We really need to lean in to that 20. How can we drive social interaction? How can we drive people working together, discussing together, and learning from each other? And then how can we help them to translate that into the 70, into the on the job? What are they going to do when they're outside of the training room so that they're actually applying what they learned with us in the training room?
That's exactly right. And that it's interesting, the 20% can marry the 70%
Hmm.
because when we're in the training room, we're drawing out others' experiences where they seem to learn the most from. So we're able to marry what are your experiences? How's it working for you? How will this new content really allow you to transform to get better results? And so it really does help us to draw out those experiences that people have so we can find, as our topic was in a prior podcast, find that relevance and find ways in which we can create urgency in them to want to adopt new habits and skills.
Exactly. I think the key really is to lean into that facilitator mindset, right? The guide on the side who gets people doing things, who gets people talking, right? Not the sage on the stage who's doing all the talking, and
Sure.
AI avatar can do that now.
Yeah.
So truly, how can we be that guide that facilitates that discussion, that thinking, and that practice in the training room?
Yeah, and that's so I love the guide on the side. That's quotable. It's also important to note that people's attention span's very short.
Mhm.
I think that would always be true. And so when you look at AI learning, and that's why most people who post things, they keep it shorter than longer because they want to gain people's interest, give them content that's valuable, but then people will move on. And so when we're in a classroom as a professional trainer, we're building that relationship, they may stay engaged with us longer because they see the value in doing that.
Mhm. True, very true. I think about our conversation so far. It seems like we're almost saying, how can we compete with AI? What if we flip the script and say, how can we truly leverage AI as trainers, as learning and development professionals? What ideas come to mind?
Yeah, so AI it's interesting because everybody questions where does the information come from when we query AI? Is there some sort of stream of consciousness in the universe that gives us this information? Well, all I can say for trainers, especially new trainers, is you may be somewhat adept in querying AI, but continue to do it to test yourself. And don't accept, like I say, on face value, everything AI gives you. Challenge it. from the standpoint of things we've discussed earlier about is this going to work for the audience that I'm delivering to? But AI is certainly a partner, and it will continue to be even more so as we evolve as trainers in this new world.
Completely agree. We have to definitely leverage it if we want to be continue to be effective and even more efficient in our various roles. I think about some things that we could do to make sure that we are leveraging AI, depending on the tools that we have access to. We know, again, thinking about the 70-20-10 rule, we need to lean into that 70, we need to lean into that 20 and leverage AI a lot for that 10. So could we lean into blended learning and have AI, maybe we have an AI avatar, deliver a micro piece of the session that we might have delivered. We, of course, check it, right? Expert in the loop. We check it for credibility. We check it to make sure that it's saying the messages that we want it to. And then we leverage that time in the room, not for learning the content, but for practicing the skills. And again, that's where our superpower as facilitators come into play. So we
Yeah.
get people in that safe environment trying on that skill that they need to build, and then they're more equipped to use it outside of the training room.
Nice. Yeah, exactly right. I have a question for you that I think our audience might be asking. All right, I know how to query AI. What's the next level? How can I use AI as a professional trainer to help me deliver what I need to at the highest possible level?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are lots of answers to this question, depending on the context of what that next level looks like for everyone as an individual trainer. For me, what that looks like is making sure that I'm leveraging AI also for my own research and my own learning. So querying in ChatGPT, what's new? And
Yeah.
and and making sure that I'm staying on the top of my game when it comes to what else is out there. What are other organizations, other trainers, other L&D professionals doing? I also leverage AI a good bit to do the research around the context and the relevance of my participants. So I'm working with a sales manager. What are their typical pain points? Or I'm working with a sales manager in this industry. What are their typical pain points? So I'm doing that research before my training, my session. And that helps me to make sure that I'm equipped to speak that language. And then last but not least, using AI as a thought partner. I have this upcoming training. Here's my current plan. Tear it to pieces. What gaps am I missing? Pretend to be an L&D expert, right? What gaps am I missing in this upcoming training? I'm working on a workshop right now that's coming up in a few weeks, and I did that yesterday and found some gaps, right? It's a great way to get another perspective and then float it by, other trainer colleagues of mine to make sure that, again, I'm not missing anything to drive the most or to maximize the effectiveness of the training.
Yeah. Let me pick up on something you just talked about. It's so important, where AI becomes a real partner. That is sometimes, especially younger trainers, more inexperienced trainers, have what is called an imposter complex. I'm not a manager. I'm not a salesperson, but here I am in front of the room. How do I know how to relate to them? And just to put an exclamation point on something you just said, allow AI to teach you what, as you said, their pain points are, what they're most seeking out of this kind of training. Because you don't have to be a manager or a salesperson. You just have to be a professional deliverer of great content and be able to transfer that content so there is real impact and change.
So true. You actually made me think back to the very beginning of my training career when I had that
Yeah.
same experience. I was fresh out of college and delivering these trainings with C-suite professionals, and I said, "What am I doing here?" And I realized that
Right.
our role is exactly that. It's to deliver, it's to facilitate learning. We don't have to be the experts, but we have to be expert in facilitating people acquiring those skills and acquiring that learning that helps them to reach their objectives.
I know we'll have a future podcast on that subject,
Hmm.
so we can dig into it more in depth, and I'll look forward to that, and I'm sure our audience will too.
Definitely, definitely. I think many of us have been in that that experience before.
Speaking to me. Speaking to me. So I
So
really look forward to using AI going forward And I think we all should have that attitude of, since we're talking about AI as a partner, we should have that attitude of don't resist, don't go with the flow, stay on the front of the curve,
Mhm.
and use the resources that are evolving out there to really build your knowledge of what AI is and how it's working in our space.
With all of the change that's been going on lately, I've been leveraging the phrase ride the wave. Let's ride the wave. Let's lean into it because I'm not a surfer, but I know that you have to lean into the wave to actually effectively ride the wave, right? Stay on the surfboard. So let's lean into it and learn what we can about it, right? We don't have to learn everything, and it's changing so fast, there's no way to learn everything, but one thing a week, maybe one thing a day, right? Talk to ChatGPT and say, what's new in my environment? Help me to learn. And that will help us to stay on top of our game and continue to ride the wave.
Yeah, love that. And as trainers in the organization wants to know that you understand it and use it. So be sure to talk about your use of it and your understanding of it so people know that you are, at the cutting edge as a professional trainer. It'll raise your credibility and they'll want to put you in front of their leaders more and more often because of that.
Exactly. Exactly. Lots to benefit from kind of switching that mindset from how can we compete with AI to how can we leverage and partner with AI.
Exactly. So true.
So thanks everyone for joining us today for our Let's Skill Up podcast. If this episode sparked new thinking, just think about this real question. What capability do you and your fellow trainers need to build next? Come back to this podcast because we will continue to jam out about these capabilities and talk about our lessons learned, talk about our war stories, and continue to see how we can continue to be not only effective, but truly impactful in our various training sessions. So again, if you enjoyed this, feel free to share it with other trainers, with your training managers, and join us next time on our Let's Skill Up podcast.